So, we're here with Joakim of the Swedish metal soldiers Sabaton. Hi Joakim.
Hello.
Hur mår du? Är det bra?
Ja, jättebra tack. He speaks
okay.
Swedish to me.
Ja, men bara lite. Okay, so Joakim, in August your next album is coming out, The Last Stand.
Yes.
And you said yourself that this will mark a new chapter in the Sabaton history.
Yeah.
So is this going to be your best record yet?
Well, that's up to the fans to decide, not us. And honestly, I can't, look at an album at least a little bit objectively until a year has passed or so. So it's a bit tricky. I guess it's
you need a bit of distance.
Yeah. But I'm still, everything is running around in my head regarding the album right now. But I think at least I know we didn't fuck up.
Do you already have some responses, for example, for the first single that you released, The Lost Battalion?
Yeah.
I imagine the fans are thrilled.
Yes, and also they're worried about the drum sound, but the thing is there are no drums in that song. What they think is the kick drum, that's actually a 50 caliber machine gun.
Yes, that's actually what I wanted to ask you, because I've never heard it before, but you actually used real guns to make the rhythm in your song.
Yeah.
How did you come to the idea?
Well, to be honest, that's just me thinking about it, and I was going through some sample libraries I had access to, because obviously we did a lot of military soundscapes for the album Art of War with conflicts going on in the background. And then I just thought, because I remember our friends, they sampled an old car that was rusty and used that for a kick drum because they loved the sound. They blended the sounds. And I thought, well, damn, shouldn't you be able to do, a drum kit, if you will, of sounds of war? And that's what we did. So 50 caliber machine gun is the kick drum. Snare drum is a 9mm, and the hi-hat is a bayonet.
Did you actually shoot those guns yourself?
No, luckily enough.
It was just a sample.
Yes, but it was a serious sample library. Trust me, I can bring out a special Browning exact, sample and have the long version or the short version, which type of ammunition is used and stuff like that. So I actually went through, when I went through the library, my choice would be the guns that reminded most of the drums they would represent, actually.
All right, so with this new album, you said that you were working on it with Peter Tegren, your longtime producer. You said that you really took it forward this time, took it a step forward.
Yeah.
So how did it actually come to that? Was it after a debate with the producer, or did you decide now we want to do something else?
I think actually it was, in a sense, when we did Heroes, the last album, that was the first one we did with the new lineup on an album. Even though Kristova had been in the band for a long time, Hannes was relatively new by that time. So
there was only you and Pelle?
Yeah, we were the only ones left. And we felt that we have to prove to ourselves and to the fans that Sabaton can still be Sabaton. So the focus on that album was, our focus is never get harder, get softer. It's always let's try and be better. But we kind of didn't take so many musical risks, or we wanted to prove that Sabaton can still be Sabaton, and I think we did that. So on this album, especially when it comes to the musicianship of Kristova and Hannes, they had more freedom. We took more risks with I wouldn't say risks, but we dared to be more varied, have more variation in the songwriting, And I think it turned out good. I really like that, when I seen some people listen to the album and they're, at least for the first half of it, like, really? What's going on here,
But from the first listening to it, the album is epic. It's strong. You can really feel the force between it and behind it. And there are actually quite a lot of subjects that you cover in the album and in the lyrics. It's much more varied because you cover the Spartans, the First World War. So the title says it all, The Last Stand, but your last album, Heroes, so could this be seen as a bit of a continuation in the topic? Because The Last Stand is obviously also about heroes.
Yeah. In a sense, yeah, it's a bit of a continuation, because we found out when we did Heroes that it was so much more interesting to tell the small group's story or the individual story. And not in all cases, but when it comes to Last Stand, there's usually a smaller force defending against a bigger one. And it's really the fate of the people involved that's, we found was the most interesting thing. How such an extreme circumstance as military conflict or war brings out the best and the worst in a human being. And sometimes both at the same time. It's quite fascinating. And I mean, as you said, Heroes was only World War II. Here, we're covering almost 2,500 years of military conflict. As you said, we got the Spartans 480 BC, starting the Battle of Thermopylae, up until the Battle for Hill 32-34 in the Soviet-Afghan War. And we're jumping from everywhere to ancient Greece, to Africa, to Japan, in between there,
And I know that you are never short of inspiration, but how did you actually come to this particular subject?
The Last Stand, you mean in general?
Yeah, in general.
Actually, we planned something else up until 1 month before the album recording. But we had, the idea of Last Stand. We already had some research done, but we had, another thing planned. But we just felt, no, this album, the music, it's more Last Stand. So we just switched around. So we're always working with 3 or 4 album ideas. And we have a couple of, let's say, when we did Heroes, we already knew that The Last Stand was among of the subjects, Exactly. So we're always kind of ahead. We always have 3 or 4 ideas waiting. And we don't know until the last minute what we're going to do. Because it's important to us that the music and the lyrics speak the same language.
So you've got plenty of topics to still cover in the future. I know it's a bit too early to say it now,
but I mean, considering what mankind has been doing for the past 10,000 years, I'm not afraid we're going to run out of material.
Did you ever thought of looking for inspiration somewhere else?
Outside of military conflict? Well, in general, I love, I actually think the factual world is more interesting than the fantasy world, in many cases. Unless it's really good fantasy, of course. But my interest is not only in military conflict. It could be in all kinds of history. It could be science, I'm really into everything in that sense. But after all, we're playing heavy metal. That is a perfect match because, in our music you can find aggression, depression, pride, joy, and all of these emotions can be felt by a soldier on the battlefield.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, our music doesn't have really that sense of discovery feeling, so we can't do an album about Galileo Galilei, even though it would be cool.
But when recording, you, as you said yourself, you need to do quite a bit of research.
Yeah.
So does that prolong the recording sessions? Or
not much. We do the basic research. We're scratching the surface everywhere, all the time, and not only for the stuff we know we're going to make albums about, but scratching the surface and saving in. It's actually Per who takes care of that. He, if we get an email from a fan and it looks interesting, he saves it according to the time period and stuff. We've got several thousand mails. I mean, obviously, some of them are going to be fantastic, and some of them are going to be kind of stupid, like when people suggest you should make an album about Star Wars. Really?
All right, maybe next time.
No, so we knew of several Last Stands and several Heroes before we even made it, but we don't want to really do the research a year in advance because then it's old news. So we figured out, I mean, we did that in the past, but we figured out the best lyrics. We usually write the lyrics together. Maybe I do 1 or 2 on my own, and maybe he does 1 or 2 on his own. But it works best when we just researched it and we're just discovering it, because then you're passionate about this story. You want to tell other people.
You find a strong story that you want to share.
Yeah, exactly. And your best to tell it right there when you're passionate about it, you know? I just discovered this, and that's the feeling, you know, we try to represent with our music. We're not really the ones, yeah, I read this 15 years ago, and after reading it 25 more times and contemplating it, this is what the conclusion I arrived to. We are not giving anyone a conclusion. We don't do political propaganda. I mean, we want to tell that explosive story in this moment.
The power of the moment.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we want to relive on stage as well, you know? So it's a bit tricky sometimes because it does get stressful. And we always end up with, you know, we have this pile of heroes or last stands. And then, you know, we pick sometimes the ones we really like. We have to leave it out because the music didn't fit, you know?
Oh, yes.
And then we always end up with one or two songs at the end. Damn, we have nothing on these two. And then you have to sit down, and me and Pan sit thinking, okay.
Oh, yeah, that's a shame.
What's this? I mean, the last song on this album, it's called the Last Battle, and it's a kind of a positive song, positive vibe, you know, and a little bit catchiness to it. And we're like, we have these amazing stories here about these super aggressive last stands. We cannot use this with this song. So then we had to do even more research, and we found the interesting story about the, you know, Battle of Schloss Itta, where Wehrmacht soldiers from Germany and American soldiers, all volunteers, join together, and that fit perfectly. Perfect final song from the album, ending it on a more positive note, you know. And it's also a bit humorous that they had a Sherman tank called Besotten Jenny, and they had her at the gates, you know, to defend. So sometimes, you know, it somehow works out anyway, because maybe we don't know exactly where to go, but we know which, you know,
which direction,
which doors we need to open, which doors we need to open to get that piece of information. Dobrý den, Česká republiko. I'm Joakim from Sabaton, and you are watching Zuzny Kanal. And you know what? I think it's on the 4th of April. We're playing Tipsport Arena in Praha. So come there, have some fun, and ještě jedno pivo.